Welcome to the Upshot, Multi World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. And Josh, I know that this is going to be hard for you to accept, but this is not actually what I wear on a regular basis.
I don't believe you.
I'm bringing the Halloween vibes into November 1st, just because, you know what? Let's, want to just keep it light. Want to keep it fun. Can you guess who I am? Yeah, you really got to be on YouTube for this one, folks.
Shoot. I really don't know.
Okay, we'll leave it as an exercise for the listeners.
Okay.
For those who are listening on the podcast, I'm wearing I've shaved my head completely. I shaved my beard completely. I'm wearing a white tank top with a cutoff sleeve vest and a a cross necklace. So that's what you got. All right. So let's get into a fun show. Before we do, though, I just want to leave a little programming note to get us started today. We are going to take a week off. Yeah, I know that's probably disappointing for some folks to hear, but Josh is going to be traveling starting today, and I'm going to be away on vacation starting over the weekend and into next week. So we figured this was the best time to take a week off. We typically do not take time off over the holidays. We're going to do our roundtable shows as usual. So we will be in full force, and we probably will have a short show on Thanksgiving. And we've got a lot of stuff to get to, but really we've been going just absolutely nonstop for like so many months that it felt like a good time to just catch our breath, take some time off. We'll get you caught up on Lake Marshall today, and then we'll be back on Thursday next week and get you ready for the New World Championship, the second silver event of the 2023 season. So Josh, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird. Take a week off, but I think we've earned it. I think so.
I think so. And one fun side note. So normally when I travel, I just pack my audio equipment in and take it with me. I mean, I'm sure we both have done more shows than we can count out of hotel rooms with poor lighting and crappy internet. Well, this time, so I'm flying to Denver, and the person who is in charge of booking our flights booked us a flight to Colorado Springs, and I just didn't look at my tickets until last weekend. Fortunately, our layover's in Denver, so we're just going to get off, but I don't get to check a bag as I usually do, because my baggage would end up in Colorado Springs. So it would have been a real hassle to pack that in a check.
That's actually a tricky money-saving tip.
It is.
Connect through the city that you want to go to and get a cheaper deal to another city and then get off. You have to be careful. Obviously, you can't check bags, and sometimes airlines don't really like that when people do this. But so somebody just screwed up and booked it to Colorado Springs on accident?
Yeah, so we're staying at a convention center that has a hotel in Colorado Springs as well, and the last time they went to Colorado, they stayed at the one in Colorado Springs.
Got it.
So when we told them the convention center, they just assumed it was the Colorado Springs one because that's where they'd been, but it's actually in Denver. So,
well, we're going to get you a travel mic so that you have something for situations such as this in the future. But anyway, we're going to take a week off, 2 shows off, and we'll be back with you next Thursday. So let's get into it. Lake Marshall Open kicked off the 2023 season. Here are your leaders in points in the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings through one event. Macy Vela-Diaz and Luke Sampson are leading the pack in the 2023 season. Macy Vela-Diaz dominating the field in FPO. She wins by 9 strokes over Sarah Hokum and Natalie Ryan. And Luke Sampson outdueled Chris Dickerson and ultimately ended up winning fairly comfortably down the stretch after shooting a 12 under. Excellent round in the final round. And Chris Dickerson just went a little cold in the middle of the round and fell back, and that was all she wrote. So really impressive stuff from Luke Sampson and Macy. Let's start an MPO. You know, we've seen glimpses of Luke Sampson as a player who has the talent to, win a tour event. And, people are going to write this off a little bit, I think, because of the timing of this tournament. Like, are people really even going to remember this when we start the sort of the actual 2023 season in earnest in February? Probably not. But do not get it twisted. Like, I think, even if you just watch the final round, you will see that Luke Sampson has the tools. He can throw it really far. When his putter is on, it is electric. And, he goes head to head with one of the best players on earth and beats him straight up.
What's impressive to me is this was not an unreplicable performance from Luke Sampson. He was definitely cleaner on tee to green, but he laid up 3 or 4 putts, missed a couple putts as well. The big difference was he wasn't shaky inside the circle. At least that's what my gut says. Let me just double check the stats real fast, make sure I'm right about that. Round 3, 82% circle 1X putting, not bad. But what was really big is his circle 2 putting was 50%, and that was with layups. I mean, he hit some incredible circle 2 putts and did so when the pressure was on. I think that was what was significant, is that he was hitting the clutch putts in the most dramatic moments. I think of hole 13, for example, where he goes out of bounds. Not a hole that I love, by the way. I have some more course thoughts that we can get to, but Luke Sampson goes out of bounds. Dickerson misses his par save attempt from back behind the water, and Luke Sampson makes his. I mean, that was the difference. So even though there were times when that, and then when Luke was laying up, Chris was missing his putts. So if that had been Chris making putts when Luke was laying up, I think this would have been a lot closer affair. But combined with the smart golf that Luke was playing, the execution off the tee, and hitting the putts when it mattered most, it just set up for a perfect round for Luke that I feel like is absolutely replicable at other courses.
Well, I mean, he was just absolutely dialed tee to green. I mean, he could not miss. Like, everything was going to the basket, and he was inside the circle, at least inside circle 2 in regulation on 17 of 18 holes. So like he had birdie look after birdie look. I mean, the fact that he shot a 12 under, he missed 3 or 4 putts. Not layups, like ones that he was trying to make that he missed, and still shot a 12 under, which shows you how well he was playing. Canned some big ones from circle 2 for sure, kind of like to make up for the misses. Meanwhile, Chris Dickerson was a little snake bit on the green. He had some pretty ugly spit outs, a couple ones going off the band, off the cage. Like, he was around the basket, but just wasn't quite as dialed from circle 2 as we kind of expect him to be. I think on another day, if he's dropping some of those putts, he probably wins this tournament. I mean, early in the round, he was up by 3 strokes. And I actually remember I flipped over to UDisc during the day on whether it was Saturday or Sunday. Now I don't remember. I must have been Sunday. And I saw Chris Dickerson was in the lead by like 2 or 3 strokes, in the middle of the round. And I'm like looking down the leaderboard. I'm like, well, nobody's going to catch Chris. Like, this is a wrap. And then when I saw that Luke Sampson won, I was like, whoa. Wow, what happened there? So just like a great round of disc golf. And, you want to talk about the course? Let's do it right now. I thought it was, there's a couple holes that are a little unpolished or a little raw. The weird, like, double island.
That's what I was going to say.
Is that 13?
14.
That's 14.
13 is the downhill that has such a low ceiling that every player except Evan Smith had to throw it into the water.
Oh, right. I
don't love that hole.
There's a couple of just sort of that double islandish water hole is a little odd. I don't know if I like it, because it doesn't feel like there's like a super fair place to land on the first island. Like Chris made the island, but then was blind on the second shot and then put it in the drink. And you have to execute, but it just felt like a little too fluky, I guess. But overall, beautiful. Just beautiful. I thought it was, it's a nice time of year to be playing in that part of the country. And I think a lot of the holes are spectacular. Like some of the par 4s particularly are really nice. Lots of great use of water, and it is easy to see how a few changes to the course would make this absolutely acceptable for an Elite Series event or a major.
Yes. A couple of things of note for me. Hole 16, for example, is one of those par fours that you highlighted. I love holes that have full 90-degree corners where the further you push and that have a wide opening on the backside, because the further you push, the cleaner line you have to the basket. But if you are not clean off the tee and don't make the corner, you all you have is a pitch up, which is what Chris Dickerson had. I love holes like that because it gives you a reward as to how hard you push the corner. But if you have a poor execution to begin with, you have to lay up, like completely removing birdie consideration from your opportunities. I think that's just an excellent hole design. I also love that hole 18 has eagle opportunity. Anytime hole 18 allows you to get those 2-stroke swings, I think it's a good hole for an 18th hole because it just keeps the drama and it keeps it exciting. At this point, it didn't. I mean, Luke Sampson was just too far gone. But in most cases, if it's a little bit closer, there's a lot of drama that comes into 18 because Chris Dickerson is able to eagle it. Lots of holes. I really felt like it was a good use of the woods, fair fairways, and just absolutely gorgeous time of year to be playing there. I mean, the fall, the leaves, the colors were all just fantastic. So I was really impressed, and I feel like Lake Marshall really lived up to the hype. I agree with you. I would really like to see hole 13 and hole 14 changed. I don't like them, either of them, very much. But after that, I don't have a lot of gripe with just about any of the other holes.
There's some Maple Hill vibes out there. Early in the front nine, there's a hole where you're throwing out into the wide open field, and then you're going up into a tight gap to the green. And that's like how many holes like that are there at Maple Hill? Like 3 or 4.
Something, yeah.
And that's a good comparison to have, right? I like those kinds of things where you get the chance to air it out with benefit coming to you if you get closer, because it makes the upshot easier because the gap is going to be essentially reduced in difficulty because you're 100 feet closer. So really, really cool to see that. And, I think clearly this event has potential, and I feel like you could play here basically any time of year outside of just dead winter. Like it could fit in the spring, before I guess after Champions Cup. You could fit it in the fall, like in and around USDGC times. But there are definitely worse courses being played on the Elite Series right now. Yes. The problem though, Josh, is they don't have cell service.
Yep, there it is.
And I saw somebody say in our Discord that's available to subscribers for less than $4 a month, discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe, that they were out on the course and there were spots where they couldn't even check UDisc because the cell service was that bad. And it hasn't stopped Northwood Black, I guess, but when you only have the one course and you're not able to really pull together live coverage, I think that's going to be a no-go for Elite Series anytime soon. And so I don't really know what you do about that, but I think that's just a reality.
I need to take one quick mulligan. Hole 13 is one that's kind of similar. The initial shot is the downhill onto a small island of sorts. That one's fine. I don't mind hole 13. I think it's an interesting hole. It kind of reminds me of Maple Hill hole 8. It's hole 5 that I don't like at all. Hole 5 has a little rock wall with the water right in front of the green, has that low ceiling. It's a short par 3, but I just think it's... Oh,
the one with the little cutout peninsula of rock wall?
Yes.
Oh, I like that hole.
Really?
I do like that hole.
I think they need to clean up the tee. I think
I can live with that.
The stuff on the tee made it more difficult to throw a forehand high enough, and that's why anyone who threw forehand went in the water. The only one who didn't was Evan Smith, who pushed it and literally hit the back wall, and he's the only one of the 3 that didn't go in the water.
Well, I can see making a couple of small changes to that hole, but I like the idea of a hole that doesn't allow you to just throw it short and kind of skip and slide it up, because that's how you play every single downhill hole, right?
Sure.
So it's no, this is a downhill hole, but you have to control where the disc is landing. You can't just dump it low and it's, you're going to be in the circle no matter what. So I like the concept at least, even if maybe the execution is too tricky right now.
That's a fair point. I think clean up the tee and just make the challenge the green and not the tee as well. And I think I would be okay with the hole.
Sure. So how about Macy Vela-Diaz? I mean, this wasn't close. She came into the final round with a 5-shot lead. She shot the hot round again in the final round. Did she shoot the hot round every single round? No, not in round 1. She was 1 shot back of Sarah Hokum after round 1. But then took control with a 3-under when everybody else was over par in round 2, and just looked fantastic. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like, this is Macy Vela-Diaz's first tour win, but it doesn't feel like it should be because of how well she's been playing when she's been playing, which maybe that's the issue.
Right. It was just a dominant performance. She led the field with 28 strokes gained from tee to green. Second was Natalie Ryan at 23. So almost 5 strokes difference in that area. And then her putting was just as good as Sarah's and Natalie's, which is all that. I mean, it was a little bit better, but a little bit better than Sarah's, not quite as good as Natalie's, but it just didn't matter because of how good she was off the tee. She was also able to minimize big numbers. And that's what is so noticeable about her scores relative to anybody else's. And this course has punishing opportunities. Sarah had 4 OBs. She was then the next best she was the best in the field, but Natalie Ryan had 10 OB strokes. So, those 5, she was better tee to green by 5 strokes and had 5 strokes better on her than OB, which is not included in the strokes gained tee to green. And so you combine those 2 numbers and there's your strokes about how she beat Natalie Ryan.
Think about the separation that we saw out here. Macy Vela-Diaz wins by 9. Then you have Hokum and Ryan there at even par for the tournament. And then 4th place, Holly Finley. These are the 4 players we talked about in the preview of they're going to be your lead card final day. And they were. Holly Finley shoots a 13 over. And it seems like, wow, that's not so good. But she was more than 20 strokes better than 5th place.
Yeah.
Then you get down to 5th place, and then it was like this. There was like a battle between everybody else. 34 over, 37 over, 38 over, 39 over, 40 over. Just like vicious differences there. And I think that's probably mostly to do with distance capabilities. But this is a pro level course. And if you're not a pro, you're going to get eaten alive by it.
A lot of the other players had, if you go all the way down through 10th, 10th place had 5 strokes negative in putting. The rest had around hovering between 2 and -2, which is fine. You can still play well, but the strokes gained, 5th place was 34 strokes gained tee to green behind Macy Vela-Diaz. You're absolutely right, Charlie. The difference was the driving, and that's how it is. Welcome to Silver Series that don't have a super deep field. And
sure, it's not a surprise. I think what's surprising to me is how great the difference between the winner and 5th was. They were separated quite a bit by rating as well, but not so much that I would expect it to be this massive of a gulf. But I think certain courses, that's just how it is. And I think this course is that. A couple Eagles out there for Macy Vela-Diaz as well, picking up 18. And
the ace on hole 4 in round 2.
That's right. Very cool clip of that up on social media if you want to check that out. So first place in a ton of categories, just not a lot of mistakes. I don't think she took 1 double bogey. You mentioned she didn't take a lot of big numbers. When she made mistakes, she didn't compound them, and it made for a comfortable win. What's Macy Vela-Diaz's ceiling? She's currently, I'd probably put her in the 10 to 20 range in terms of where she is in the world rankings.
Yeah. What's her ceiling? So looks like her best performance, I would say I think you could either say the It's got to be third place at Des Moines. That was her best performance this year. She also won the Tennessee State Disc Golf
Yeah,
Championship.
she was third at DMC. Bunch of top 10s.
Yeah. She's still young though, isn't she?
Yeah. She's only been a pro since 2019.
Yeah, I remember seeing an interview with her, and I don't remember. It's got to be Disc Golf Network, where she was talking about her decision not to go to college and to pursue disc golf, and that was like a year or two ago. It wasn't long ago that she was talking about this. It's really I think it's probably a like tier 2 player range. I think, if you look at it on the MPO side, I think consistency is her big thing now, but I think she could consistently be like Kevin Jones, like occasionally get a win. And not Kevin Jones this season, but Kevin Jones of previous season. Get a win or two and be really consistent and kind of in the mix and be a name there. But I just have a hard time seeing her as like the next top, in the group of Kristen Page, that replacement.
Sure, we haven't seen that level with any kind of consistency.
No, and there's too many of them that have shown that level of like just skill that I think is a big deal. Because we've seen, I think it's important to see, it's oftentimes consistency that...
Let me ask you this.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
You're right. Who has the better career, Ella Hansen or Macy Villa-Diaz? It's not easy,
career? Right? It's not easy.
It's not easy. I think that's my point, is that I think she has more potential than maybe we give her credit for, because she doesn't have like a flashy component to her game that you're like, oh, wow. Like Ella's like, wow, my God, she can throw so far. And it's true.
Sure.
But like Macy's really, really solid across the board. And I don't see any reason why she couldn't be the Valerie Mondahano of 2023.
Maybe.
What's stopping her? Like, she's showing you that she has all the tools this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I know the field was weak, but it's not like she beat nobody at all. Like, beating Sarah Hokum and Holly Finley and Natalie Ryan on a wooded long course is not a given at all. And she blew them away. So I don't know. I think she's been somebody that I've been high on for a while. I still remember watching her. I think it was at Jonesboro. She was just shredding that one year. I think it might have been the year that Katrina like had that insane round to then go on to win the tournament. But I think Macy's got a lot of potential.
I mean, I don't disagree. I picked her to win this weekend. So,
dang it, man, I'm already behind. We are going to do a full accounting of our picks next week and for 2022, and we'll set the ground rules for 2023, and then of course make our picks for New World Championship. Luke Sampson getting it done as a Castoplast sponsored player. Not so much we see that, but we're starting to see some guys who are like sponsored by lesser known companies. Evan Smith was on the card again. I feel like I've seen a lot of Evan Smith over the last 2-3 months. He's a Clash Discs guy. We got Luke Sampson shredding with Castoplast. Do you expect this to be an ongoing trend? Obviously, the biggest guys are all sponsored by the biggest companies, but
sure.
It's like a nice little moment in the spotlight for Castoplast.
Yes, I do expect this to be an ongoing trend. And the reason why is because what's going to happen is you're going to get they are going to get better kind of spotlights, and that's going to be more important to players than being Innova. Let's use Innova as an example, right? Innova's got their star team and then their champion team and then another team. I'm not sure what the team name is after that. The top team, the star team, obviously get the signature disc. They get lots more money, very prestigious to be on that. I think their champion team is also very prestigious. Anthony Barella, for example, on that champion team.
We talked before this season about how many really strong players are on their champion team, and it felt like the star team was like, are there some players on here that shouldn't be?
Right. Yes. So, Innova has the depth in their structure to offer what I think are deals that are competitive enough and lucrative enough for players like Anthony Barella to be willing to take Innova's second team and still play for Innova in that case. But when you think about after Discraft's tour team, I don't really know what's there. There's not a lot of depth there in terms of the competition. And so it's going to be more lucrative for those players to go and get Clash discs or Mint discs or the Castoplast in this case, or, whatever it might be, and use that as an opportunity. And then I really think that once they get better, they're going to get sponsored by one of the top companies because they can just pay more. Right. I mean, I don't know what Castoplast's finances are, but I bet you they're not paying 10-year $10 million, even if they wanted to. If Luke Sampson was as good as Paul Macbeth, I don't know. But I mean, it's also a question of what kind of plastic can they move. And these players just aren't yet at the point in their careers that they're moving as much plastic as the top professionals. So it makes sense. But I really do think we're going to see more of these smaller disc companies become featured as you get good players who would prefer, rather than going into some obscurity on large teams that already have their finances and sponsorships tied up in the top players, going to companies that would be willing to sponsor them, because the amount that those players, a player like Luke Sampson, can move the needle is probably enough that they can pay him more than what a big company can.
Sure. Yeah. I think the last point you made is exactly the thing that was in my mind. It's you're going to get more as a promising but not yet established pro from a secondary company than you're going to get being on the third team of Innova. Mm-hmm. And, that's not based in, I've seen the contracts and I know that. I just think that you're more likely to have an opportunity to have higher upside with a company that's smaller and sees opportunity for you to grow into being that kind of player. So,
yep.
Before we take a quick break, I want to talk about this new On Tour series from DGN. It just released episode 1 yesterday. Before we discuss, let's take a quick look at a 1-minute snippet here from On Tour. Take a look.
Having gotten into the game in the 90s, close to 30 years ago, it's pretty insane to see how much we've grown as a sport. A handful of years ago, people barely being paid anything, to now people being paid millions of dollars doing what we love is a pretty exciting opportunity.
Welcome to Vegas for the Las Vegas Challenge presented by Innova Champion Discs, the kickoff to the 2022 Disc Golf Pro Tour season.
We've got the Europeans over, we've got the top-rated women, we've got 60 women.
Wow,
That's
really?
a fantastic field, and such talent everywhere.
Back when I played my first FPO event, I remember walking up and there wasn't a lot of spectators, but fast forward to 2021, 2022, we went from absolutely no one really paying attention to people are just sitting at those ropes, just watching you warm up, seeing how you get ready for your round.
Mona Pan is stepping up right now. Dynamic this year.
She seems like a deep, proud kind
She
of
does,
gal.
yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah,
Big throw.
that was. Kona could bomb.
So, Josh, we've both had a chance to watch episode 1. What are your thoughts?
I talked a lot about going into this episode about whether or not this was going to be a series for new players or if it was going to be a series for people who subscribe to Disc Golf Network, right? Which means that they are disc golf fans who watch live disc golf and are pretty into the sport. I had a friend as well who commented, and I agree that I feel like it was done in conjunction or done in a way that it feels like it appeals to both. I will, it starts off with, isn't it like the exact same beginnings of because the 2 documentaries came out. There was Fierce, and then there was, what was the other one? The other PDGA one.
The PDGA one, gosh, what do they call it? Was it just called the Holy Shot? I think it was.
I think so. I think the Holy Shot starts with like the exact same clips of, and maybe it was anyway, those clips with like Ed Hendrick and then like Paige talking, those were used in one of the other documentaries almost verbatim. And I'm like, I feel like I've seen this before. But it very quickly became something that I think was, it had the storylines. I think it did a good job of establishing storylines, establishing people to follow. But then, I mean, watching like them play catch out in the parking lot, then watching and like Katrina Allen's comments about Paige tends to choke when she is throwing the disc rather than putting. Those were things that kept me engaged as somebody who already understood the Kona storyline and how that plays out this year.
Yeah, I think the best stuff in it was definitely the stuff that we haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that is harder to get a sense of from, watching the coverage and watching the press conferences and stuff. Like some of the quotes, like that's the benefit of the access that the film crew had, because you're going to get some stuff that maybe players aren't going to say in a press conference setting, even if you ask them directly. And I think it's interesting to have, Kona set up right away as this like key story of like, you got this huge contract and now you are under scrutiny and you're playing badly. Like, it didn't take long. Like, then there was quotes from her, like from LVC, where she was like kind of broken up about the fact that she wasn't playing well. Obviously we kind of know where that goes, but it's interesting to kind of think about, if you put yourself in the perspective of not having seen any of this, right? If you were somebody who was tuning in to Drive to Survive and you knew nothing about F1, and then you watch and like now you're invested. How is that experience for you watching this? It's sort of interesting, the characters that we're sort of set up with initially, given that, we don't even see Paul Macbeth, right? Did he even play this tournament? I don't think he played LVC, right?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember now, but we're seeing Drew Gibson, who frankly isn't really that relevant later in the season. So are they going to maintain these characters, or is it going to be like little sort of chunked mini episodes? I hold out my thoughts on that, because Kona being a storyline throughout the season, maybe it could make sense, but she's so irrelevant from a golf perspective later on, that how do you maintain that? So that's something I'm going to be waiting to see. I enjoyed it. I thought a lot of the video work was really nice and shot beautifully, and some of the behind the scenes stuff was really cool. I also feel like it was like 20 minutes too long. I mean, I really think it could have been edited a lot tighter. I understand they want to probably get these out to about an hour. I think the episode 1 was 50 minutes. I just felt like there was way too many just sequences of players throwing shots. I don't know. That doesn't keep my interest very much. It just, it's nice, but like I don't need that all the time. Give me the key sequence from, Gannon versus Drew at the end. That was good, because that's like a dramatic moment of the golf. But I just felt like there was a way too much just sort of like general fluffy stuff that could have just been cut. Get it down to 30 minutes, and I think it would be a tighter, better episode.
Well, it's actually really funny. It's actually really funny because I was at my conference. I was talking to a doctor, and we were chatting. He had just moved to the area, and we were just kind of chatting about different things, chatting about some sports. And he said, "Yeah, I'm a big F1 guy." And I said, "Oh, okay. Like I know a little bit about F1, but it's because of probably the same way that every casual fan that you talk to now, it's because I watched Drive to Survive, or a little bit of it. And then I went and watched a couple races." And he said, I hated that series as a diehard F1 fan. And I asked him why. And he said, because they focus on completely irrelevant people to the overall storyline of F1 right now. And so he said that like this last week before I'd watched On Tour. And I thought that was interesting because now I love, even if I don't watch sports, I love following sports news and kind of watching, how it's reported on and such. So I have F1 as one of my favorited sports on my sports app. So I get updates now on F1. And I agree with him. Like the names I see on my phone and on the articles that are being written about and who's winning was not at all the focus of the series that I had watched. And so that made sense to me. And then we come to On Tour and they're like Drew Gibson and Coda Panis. And I was like, he's right. Like it's very similar in that problem. It's also in part though, because, and I think you might have mentioned this, Charlie, there is a certain level though of you just need the people who are good on camera. Kona is somebody the reason her contract was the size that it is, and we've talked about this, she had a good season last year, but not a season that merited in terms of play the $500,000 over 4 years. She has an enormous social media presence though, and a strong social media brand, and she's really good behind the camera.
True.
And so even if Kona is not a relevant golf storyline for us golf fans, when you think about the appeal to broader audiences, I mean, who are you going to put in there? You're going to put like Calvin? The guy hardly talks. I mean, he has quippy and like funny moments, but you need the people who are dynamic and are camera personalities. And that sometimes is just not congruent with those who are the best golfers and the most relevant golf storylines.
I completely agree. My point is, can you drive 6 episodes of content with Kona as a main character?
I'm not sure. It's a legitimate question.
That's my point. And maybe the answer is yes. We will see. I think potentially one of the challenges of this format, based on seeing episode 1, is that if it's just chronological, we're just going to get a chronology. We're not going to get a sense of characters that are like recurring throughout the whole thing. And so we'll see. I mean, I think that's the challenge of setting things up in a chronological order, where that may not be the optimized thing. It's like, who do you want your main characters to be? And also, who do you have access to? I mean, you mentioned the F1 thing. I'm pretty sure I know almost nothing about F1. The main guy, the number one guy in the world, whoever he is, whose name escapes me. You know it?
Max Verstappen?
Maybe him. Whoever it was at the time didn't participate in the documentary.
Oh, at the time,
they were like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
they didn't do it, and so then it was this massive smash success, huge hit, right? And then the next year, everybody wanted to be involved. All the drivers wanted to get involved. So, I think that's less of an issue with On Tour, but I imagine there's some pros who are a little harder to pin down. Paul is notoriously like this, who isn't going to just sit and give you hours and hours and hours and hours of time. And so perhaps it's no surprise that we don't see him at all in episode 1. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
I mean, what does Paul have to gain by being on a documentary that goes to Disc Golf Network subscribers?
Not much, but I mean, Paul cares a lot about the growth of the sport, and
he does.
Sees this as an opportunity to do that. I mean, like, there's got to be an episode about Eagle versus Paul at European Open, right?
Sure hope so.
And I think we did see Eagle a little bit in episode 1. If I recall correctly. So I think so. But maybe I'm mixing it in my mind with watching Eagle on YouTube talking about something that we will talk about next. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Did you know the Pound makes more than disc golf backpacks? That's right. They've got beverage carriers. I've got one. They're awesome. They've got travel bags like the Fly Pack. You can even get a toolbox to have a practice bag in the trunk of your car, a fanny pack, packing cubes, and a whole lot more. Go to PoundDiscGolf.com and trick yourself out with Pound bags for every aspect of your bag needs.
Sunset Lake CBD is a hemp farm located just outside of Burlington, Vermont. For For years, Sunset Lake produced milk for Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and in 2019, they diversified and started growing hemp for CBD. Sunset Lake CBD believes that their farm table approach is the best way for you to get responsibly produced, high-quality CBD products that actually work. Sunset Lake CBD crafts topicals, gummies, oils, and more to help with stress, aches, and sleep. I know I've talked before about how I like using the melatonin CBD-infused gummies before I go to sleep, but one thing I remarked this week that is a really nice feature of it, if I take NyQuil, I have to set a timer because I've got 30 minutes, and then I'm going to be completely dysfunctional. I can take this melatonin CBD and I can continue to watch my movie, read a book, and go to bed when I feel ready rather than forced by other medication. I think it's a big deal for me. I really appreciate the sleep I can get, and I know that melatonin-infused CBD has been great. Check them out today and all their other products at sunsetlakecbd.com and use coupon code UPSHOT for 20% off all products. Sunset Lake CBD, farmer-owned, Vermont-grown.
Welcome back to the Upshot. We've got an opportunity to give away 5 1-month subscriptions to the Disc Golf Network. And that's whether you're new and you don't have a subscription or you have an existing subscription, you get a month tacked on for free. And all you got to do to try to win is send in an email to upshot@ultiworld.com and give us something that you want to hear us talk about in this off season. 2022 off season, or I guess 2023 off season. And we're, whether that's looking back at 2022, looking ahead to 2023, it's in the spirit of the On Tour show. And so we will give away a month subscription so you can check out that whole series. And all you got to do is send us an email. So give us your thoughts. What topic do you want to see us approach over the next few months before the start of the sort of official 2023 season? That's going to bring us to a quick checkup on our discussion last time about our ballots for the Player of the Year, second and third card All-Stars, Most Improved Player. We went through our whole selection of picks. You can go back and check out that episode if you haven't heard that. But we got a couple of emails from folks who were surprised or upset that we didn't pick Eagle McMahon as somebody for our second/third card All-Stars, given that we both talked about picking a player who we felt like, even though maybe they didn't fully justify the pick based on their season performance, still were a good enough and exciting enough player that fans would want to see that they should get a spot. I said this about Haley King. Josh said this about Drew Gibson. Both players who had solid seasons for sure, won tournaments, but maybe, weren't as on tour as much or as consistent as some of the other players that maybe if you were just doing it strictly on points, you would pick them above those players. And so folks said, why the heck didn't you pick Eagle? What do you say to that, Josh?
Yeah, two things. Number one, the list. So I did my ballot. I got an email at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they're like, it's due by 8 o'clock tonight, so make sure you get it done. So I did it on my lunch break that day, and they had the list organized in order of people's points. So Eagle was so far down the list that I did not even, I even kind of scrolled a little ways. Didn't see Eagle because obviously he just didn't play enough to be very high in ratings or in standings. I think that the Drew Gibson and Haley King picks are still fine picks. In hindsight, if I had thought about Eagle and thought to, seen his name on the list, I probably would have picked him over Drew Gibson because I really believe in that appeal of just watching a player who I think is an all-star based on their skill set and their talent. And that's enough that I would want to see Eagle at the All-Stars event. So had I scrolled far enough down the list, I probably would have picked Eagle over Drew Gibson.
I thought about Eagle and I did not include him.
Okay.
And it is fair to say, well, how is the argument any different than Haley King? But it is different, and I'm going to tell you why. There has to be some boundary to what is enough play during a season to qualify for an all-star event. And I think Haley King reached that level. She played 12 tournaments. She played all the majors except European Open. And she played the Tour Championship. And she did skip a number of Elite Series events. She skipped, mostly she would skip one or two here and there. I think the thing that hurt her candidacy more than anything else was just straight skipping the playoff events. That way she didn't really need to play them because she had a spot in the play-in either way, and she did get through the play-in into the next round. So, take what you will. But she played 12 events, okay? Eagle played 5 events. Eagle didn't play, except he played European Open.
Yeah.
And if he hadn't won European Open, there's literally no case whatsoever besides the fact that he's a tremendously talented player.
True.
And certainly, I would love to watch Eagle play at the All-Star event. So based on that criteria alone, yes. But it's about that and how they played during the season. And Eagle just didn't play. He did not play enough. And frankly, outside of the European Open, he didn't play that great. Obviously, the European Open, that's one of the stories of the year because he just kind of came out of total hibernation and somehow beat Paul Macbeth, who was shooting 1070 golf. Mm-hmm. And it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. But I just don't think there's quite enough there to pick Eagle to the All-Star.
I think it's a completely legitimate reason to leave Eagle off. I know it makes sense. I think I still would have picked him had I thought about it. I think winning a major and the talent is enough.
Winning a major is maybe enough.
And then the way he did it, right? Both combine those, and I think it's enough. But
that was certainly an all-star worthy performance.
Yeah, it was. Indeed it was. But anyway, it's not like this has a ton of tangible impact on those players anyway. So, and besides, Eagle's just going to get to be a reserve at the All-Star event anyway. And they'll announce that the week of.
Yeah, actually everybody gets to play. And anybody who complains gets to play. So, all right. It's time to go inside the circle. Josh, take it away.
Yeah, we got a couple of things here. First up on Inside the Circle, we had the National Amateur Disc Golf Tour Championship. That is just the worst acronym in disc golf, I'm convinced. That might rival the Throw Pink Women's Disc Golf Championship in terms of bad acronyms. But we had that this weekend. It was broadcast live on the Disc Golf Network because of no coverage at the Lake Marshall Open. Zachary Nash is your winner in MPO, and Cadence Burge wins in FPO. Cadence is only 15 and beats out listener and subscriber Emily Yale, who ended up taking second. Emily had the lead after several rounds, including going into the finals. And so an amazing performance from Emily as well. Shout out to her and give her congratulations if you're over on the Discord. But I mean, this tournament is, it's kind of a weird enigma to me because on the MPO FPO side, I mean, it's the real deal. There's pretty good payouts overall for all things considered. It requires qualifying, and the top players typically qualify through playing certain events. And it's very, I think it highlights very strong amateur play in that way. On the flip side, it also gives entry into a lot of people in a lot of divisions just based on how many tournaments you played in a season. So you'll get people who are playing divisions that are 10 or 20 points below where they would normally play just because they played the most of anybody else from a state. So it's kind of weird in that way that it both rewards really excellent talent and I think could become a very legitimate amateur tour in its prestige in the championship. I mean, I think it should hold some prestige, but on the flip side, it's also kind of odd in the way people qualify. But congratulations to the winners, winning MPO and FPO and second place, of course. That's nothing to laugh about. I mean, that's a real serious and impressive accomplishment on your career.
Well, let's talk about Cadence for a second. She won AM Worlds in FA1 earlier this year, and we're talking about a future superstar here. She played the under 15 division at Junior Worlds this year. She was born in 2007. That's the year I graduated high school. She's very talented. She's gone from being rated in the 700s 2 years ago to now being just shy of 900 and is just flying up the leaderboards. I think, you're looking at somebody who's very much got the potential to, take the leap to tour in a couple years. She's still super young, of course. So who knows how long before she starts playing, FPO on a regular basis. I mean, she's gone professional. She took $1,000 this weekend. I don't know. This is not her first time taking cash. So basically this year she started playing regularly in FPO. But, very impressive. A name to keep an eye on, in a field with mostly players with PDGA numbers in the 140 to 215,000 range. Her PDGA number was 79,233. And again, she's still a teenager. So a lot of talent. Just rating is shooting through the roof, and do not sleep. She's from Alabama. So cool to see. And we'll see if, she pops up on tour at some Silver Series next year or in a couple of years.
Man, if I start seeing more Roll Tide discs out on tour, I just don't know if I can handle it. The other Inside the Circle, Kristen Tatar had an ad. This comes from Reddit, from Disc Golf Fanatic, who posted that. So shout out to them. The Sportland is a company in Estonia that is kind of like a Dick's Sporting Goods here, kind of a, just a retailer, and did an ad with Kristen and Silver Lot, with them in Nike coats, and that was seen at a bus stop in Estonia. It's just so cool to see the kind of publicity that European disc golfers get, and how big of a deal it is to their countries when you have people like Kristen Tatar, who is being featured in advertisements for large retail sport chains.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a sidewalk advertisement.
Yeah.
And the caption, of course, not in English, but in English it says "Winner's Choice." So we already knew that Tatar had a local Nike sponsorship, and I mean, she's like a celebrity. I mean, this is people. I guess people are assumed to know who she is, right?
That's crazy.
There's no caption that says disc golfer or anything.
Not at all.
It's just a picture of the two of them. Maybe does it say along the side there? I guess it does. Kristen Tatar, professional disc golfer. Silver Lot, professional disc golfer. But it is. It's pretty amazing to see that, and obviously with the scale of the country being so much smaller, and I would imagine that in general you don't have a lot of world champion athletes coming out of Estonia, just as a general rule. It means that, something like this can really get magnified. But it's pretty awesome to see.
Well, didn't Kristen say that the Prime Minister gave her a congratulations when she won Worlds? Yeah, I mean, that is so cool. It's
very cool.
Does Paul Macbeth get a White House visit? Let's make that happen.
I don't think it works like that.
Oh, darn it.
Not yet. We're getting there.
Getting there, but it really is impressive, and just an exciting development in disc golf news.
All right, well, that is going to do it for today's show. Again, we're going to be off Thursday and next Tuesday as we're both traveling, but we'll be back with you on November 10th, and we'll be rocking and rolling for the rest of the off season. We've got a lot to get to. We're going to do stock picks. We've got 2022 storylines bracket coming. We're going to take a look at all of the ideas that you send in to try to win a free month of DGN and lots more. So can't wait to get into discussion of this off season and what's to come in 2023. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on The Upshot.